So a few months ago I decided I was going to 100% the Metro series of games, once again only this time for the channel. As I've already platinumed the series on PlayStation, my plan was to complete the first 2 games on Steam and then earn the platinum for the PS4 version of Metro Exodus, as I earned it previously on PS5. The first game in the series was Metro 2033 that I went through and experienced on PC with the added benefit of an absolutely amazing reshade, giving it some much more darker nitty-gritty visuals and a bit more overall depth to everything. I had an absolute blast revisiting the game and vowed to revisit the other 2 in the series, however I never got around to actually making a video on them. Well, now that changes, as in today's video we are going to be going through and finally 100% completing the second game in the series, Metro Last Light, and all of its DLC, resulting in us earning all of its 49 achievements. Much like with 2033, this time we will be covering the game on Steam rather than on PlayStation due to me already having the Platinum trophy, but in terms of what we need to do for each achievement remains the same as the trophies. And I also get the benefit of having another absolutely amazing reshade. But enough of all of that though, sit back, relax, grab a bevy and join me as we 100% Metro Last Light. Enjoy. We begin the game in some sort of dream where we find ourselves guarding the metro tunnels with some fellow soldiers before we are eventually attacked by a group of Dark Ones and Nazalis. We then proceed to take them all down, only to realise that there wasn't actually any Nazalis at all and we were in fact gunning down and killing our friends. A Dark One then leans in to touch us and we awaken as Artyom in his room. Khan's there as well and he tells us that while out he had spotted a Dark One that managed to survive the missiles that we launched at their home in the last game, and because we seem to have some sort of connection with the Dark Ones, he tells us that we must try to find it and speak with it. Before we could do that though, we needed to convince Miller, and so with that we grab our things and head over to the Colonel with Khan to discuss what we are going to do about it. On our way there I make sure to listen in on some of the conversations, as much like the first game, this game has 2 endings. These are essentially the good and bad endings of the game, each with their own achievement, and of course we are going to be getting the good ending for the first time round. But unlike the first game, the good ending is actually the canon ending, whereas in the previous first game, Metro 2033, the bad ending was the canon ending. Really weird, but kinda cool at the same time. To get the good ending though, we need those good morale points, and we can obtain them in moments like these or making the good choices in more important moments later on in the story, and we'll know once we have, as we get an audible sound as well as a white flash on our screen telling us basically, job well done, you've done a good thing. And along with the moral points, I'll also be collecting all of Artyom's diaries as we progress through another achievement, and there's 43 in total to collect. Anyway, continuing on, we stop off at the armory to get fully equipped with everything we'll need to survive down in the metro and in the irradiated city above, from gas masks and medkits all the way to some big boy guns, and unlike the first game we get to carry 3 weapons straight from the get-go, and choosing 3 weapons that use 3 different types of ammo nabs us our first achievement, Veteran. Now, although it wasn't that long ago we were slaying muties and destroying homes, I still thought it was best to get a few practice shots in at the range, just to make sure we still got it. Thankfully we do, and completing the shooting range also got us the rabbit achievement for completing our training. At this point it's always best to double check you're actually playing Metro, as you'll know from the first game it's not typically this generous when it comes to achievements, at least from the get-go. Continuing through D6, we hear of a man named Lesnitsky who up until very recently worked in the labs at D6, and we find out that he had managed to steal something very important, something that isn't revealed to us now, but I'm sure we'll find out later on. We eventually meet with the Colonel, and Khan tells him of the Dark One that he has seen outside and that he wants to travel to the surface with us to find it and make contact with it. Of course the Colonel thinks this is complete and utter madness and has Khan restrained instantly. The Colonel then tells us to head to the surface with his daughter Anna to find the Dark One and finish off the last of its kind, although he seriously needs to have a word with her about calling people rabbit. It's annoying. Anna, shut up before I fly kick you to the face, seriously.
Well, we've worn this place out. Let's move.
Yep, let's go. After heading through the tunnels and climbing up some dirty ladder, Anna climbs onto the top of a building to provide sniper cover, and we head further outside. Of course we get attacked by the usual muties that we're used to seeing, but they prove to be of little to no trouble for us, and as of writing this, I've just thought of something. Does she call us rabbit because she's sitting far away with a scoped rifle and we are essentially like a rabbit in like her field of view when she looks down the scope? Or is she just a Getting back on track, we continue on and eventually spot the dark one we were after, although this one seems different from any we've seen, at least in terms of its size. As you see, this one is quite a bit shorter than the rest that we have seen up until this point. As we follow the creature, we decide against shooting it and attempt to catch it instead. While our plan kinda worked, we also neglected to remember that the dark ones can enter our mind, and he ends up taking us on a little journey back to the ending of the previous game where we had launched the missiles on the dark one's home. We eventually come round only to find out that while we were sleeping, some Nazis that were patrolling the area had found us and decided that we were coming with them before knocking us out again.
Still warm. Guten Morgen.
This brings an end to the level, but we do unlock the Not a Rabbit achievement for completing the mission without taking any damage. We then wake back up and find ourselves in a room about to be interrogated. We see a man get shot for having a slightly larger than average head, however we wasn't prepared to share the same fate, and so with the help of another prisoner named Pavel, we managed to take out the 2 guards and proceed to arm ourselves up, and of course we get stuck with a knife instead of the gun. We proceed to take out the trash and we find ourselves in some sort of prison camp, and we have to sneak our way through without getting caught, as if we do, the Nazis will flood the room with gas, and well, we know that's their specialty. This whole section essentially acts as an introduction to the game's stealth mechanics that has us stick into the shadows, silently taking out enemies and removing light bulbs. Eventually we clear out all of the guards in the area and decide to help the prisoners escape by opening all of the prison cells, which also manages to nab us the Freedom achievement. After escaping the prison, we come to a massive room filled with Nazi soldiers. Now, rather than just walk through trying to be as inconspicuous as possible, Pavel thought it was a good idea to shoot his gun into the air, causing everyone to be alerted to our presence instantly, and leaving us to make a run for it. I mean, if you were going to do that, Pavel, you could have at least killed someone, man. We do get a bit winded during the escape, but thankfully Pavel helps us into a rail car which we then use to escape the base, and we unlock the Clean Escape achievement for escaping the base without getting caught. Eventually our time in the rail car comes to an end and we are once again left to continue on foot. We then help Pavel up into a pipe which just so happens to lead into a base filled with Nazis.
Wait here while I look around.
Yeah, you can't make this up, so now it was time for us to go and save him. This is something that we are very familiar with at this point, and we are used to doing this in the first game. And again, like the first game, we are presented with multiple ways that we can proceed. Now, shooting everyone would be the quickest way to go, but this would mean missing out on the Invisible Intruder achievement, which requires us to complete the level without killing anyone or raising the alarm. Of course, we are going for the achievement now, so I don't have to worry about it later and can just go ahead and shoot everyone when I go through it. So we proceed to sneak through the base, knocking anyone out that I need to, and stick into the shadows as much as possible. Thankfully, we managed to get this done pretty damn smoothly, and it wasn't long before we unlocked the achievement. We eventually come across Pavel, however he is quickly taken away again by the Nazis to be hanged, and now it was a race against time to save him before he bites the dust. Much like the previous level, there are 2 ways to proceed through this one, with another achievement being up for grabs for completing the level the same way, without killing or raising alarm. Something which again, by knocking out people only when necessary and sticking to the shadows, I managed to get done pretty easily, eventually unlocking the Invisible Saviour achievement. Eventually we find Pavel, take out his executioners and get the man some air, and with that we make our escape from the Nazi facility. Now, we were a long way from the safety of our home, and of course the road ahead was going to be a dangerous one, with our first threat coming in the form of those pesky mutated spiders. Thankfully, like the first game, they aren't fans of the light, and we use that to our advantage as we progress through the arachnid infested tunnels. After a few close calls, we eventually managed to escape the horrors of the metro tunnels to face the horrors of the surface above. While up on the surface, I'll be going for the missable achievement called Mouse, which requires us to complete the level without drawing the attention of the local watchmen. This, for the most part, is really easy, as Pavel will actually give us cues as to when these moments occur, and as long as we stay back and hold our fire, we can get through them without fighting for our life in the process. And it wasn't that long before we nabbed the achievement. We eventually find ourselves passing through a downed plane, where we begin to experience visions, which eventually leads us to standing in the cockpit of the plane as it goes down while the nuclear bombs hit. Thankfully, we managed to snap out of it, and we also make sure to save Pavel from inhaling all of that nasty radiation causing the hallucinations. Once we're back on our feet, we continue on and eventually find ourselves on the run from a bunch of mutants, but thankfully we managed to make our way down to another metro station where the soldiers inside come out to give us a helping hand. This lovely station is Theatre Station, and it's under the control of the Red Army, and while they are Russian, they're not exactly on our side of the war, but Pavel is one of them and we saved him, so surely nothing bad will happen, right? We continue through the station, we stock up on supplies, and we take a well-deserved break to watch some local entertainment. Not only was the entertainment actually, well, it's not great, let's be honest, it's not great, but we did get an achievement for watching the whole thing. Now time for a bit of a downer. Turns out Pavel is a slimy bastard. You see, we thought we were getting treated to a lovely meal and a drink for our heroics, but apparently Pavel is a bit more important to the Red Army than he has been letting on, and he takes this as the opportunity to drug and capture us to take back to the Red Line headquarters. Once there, we are taken to meet a man named General Colbert, and along with him we find Lesnitsky, the dirty rat. He tells Colbert of who we are and that we are a ranger stationed at D6, and Colbert decides to take us to the interrogation room, so once again we are knocked out. We then awaken and find ourselves in front of General Colbert, who presents us with an offer. We tell him everything that we found at D6 and continue to work as his spy in exchange for our life. We tell him we need a few moments to think about it, but that didn't matter, as a few moments later we end up getting slapped around by a budget Hitler, also known as General Moskvin. But because his interrogation tactics clearly wasn't working, he hands us back over to Colbert and tells him to use his truth serum on us and then shoot us. And a few moments later we are then injected by his truth serum and we seemingly reveal everything we know to General Colbert. A while later we get woken up by Moskvin's son. Thankfully he doesn't share the same views as his father, and he frees us from our restraints and sends us on our way to freedom, unlocking us another achievement. At this point our main job was to escape the Red Army headquarters, and of course this is no easy feat. The place is absolutely swarming with soldiers and we are number one on their list of people to shoot. Again, there are multiple ways to proceed through the mission, and again there is an achievement that requires us to finish the level without killing anyone or raising an alarm. So of course stealth is the option that we choose here. While going through the level we obviously needed to use darkness to our advantage, and I often found myself flipping numerous switches and levers and turning off numerous lights, both of which earn us achievements. The engineer achievement for using 10 lever switches, and the Edison achievement for turning off a total of 40 lights without destroying them. And a short while later we escaped the level without killing or raising a single alarm for the Invisible Soldier achievement. Our escape ended up in us reuniting with our old friend the blacksmith. We tell him what's going on and he says that he'll get word back to Miller and the rest of D6 and then allows us to use this beauty to get there. This lovely lady is Regina, and she'll be taking us on a ride that we're not likely to forget anytime soon. Thankfully she is covered in some very bright light bulbs, allowing us safe-ish passage through another dark and dirty metro filled with mutated spiders, and while making our way down the tunnel I managed to nab a few more achievements. The first was the tortoise achievement for using our light to flip 10 of these pesky spiders upside down. The next was the Pyromaniac achievement for burning a total of 50 webs, and eventually we found ourselves pushing a carriage down the track, all while getting chased by a bunch of watchmen, and killing all of these mutants without taking any damage nabbed us the Scram achievement. After we lose the Watchmen, we then almost lose our lives as we find ourselves rapidly descending down the tracks. Apparently we are one tough bastard, and so is this car by the looks of it, as after a couple of tries the old lady starts back up again. We continue on and eventually find ourselves smashing through a wooden barricade and coming face to face with a group of people. Thankfully they were the friendly kind, however warn us of bandits up ahead that have also seemingly taken members of their group. At this point we decide to leave old Regina behind and carry on down the tunnel on foot in order to not draw attention to ourselves, when we eventually stumble across a couple of assholes who are about to have their way with this poor woman, and of course we quickly make sure that doesn't happen. Now this level also has an achievement which I'm going to be going after, which requires us to get through the entire bandit filled area without raising alarm. Thankfully though, this time we are allowed to get kills. Now for the most part this isn't too bad. There's a decent amount of dark areas that you can hide in, and if you're like me and decide to use throwing knives, you can safely pick a few of the enemies off from a distance. Now, I never realised how overpowered the throwing knives were until this time around, and so decided to use these pretty much throughout the remainder of the area, during which I managed to get 10 kills in a row with them, unlocking the no shooting allowed achievement. And a couple of minutes later, I also get the shadow achievement for stealthily killing a total of 15 enemies. We eventually wipe out every single bandit in the tunnel, saving the women and children, and that also unlocks us another achievement, Commando. After clearing out the tunnel, it was soon time to say farewell to our beloved Regina. She rode the tracks well, but even the best of us can fall off the rails. From one vehicle to another though, we soon find ourselves at a dead end. Well, kinda. We end up at a dock that fishermen use to travel around the metro, and we ring the nearby bell to let one of them know to come and give us a ride. Of course, this is one of those lengthy, drawn out survival sequences, and we get attacked by a whole bunch of Nazalis. However, this wasn't such a bad thing, as it did give me the extra kills I needed to reach 100 mutant kills for the antibiotic achievement. The fisherman eventually reaches us, and we jump on his boat to make our escape to safety. This safety only lasted for a few minutes, however, as we are soon introduced to a new enemy type. These weird mutated fishy-like creatures are called shrimps, and it turns out that they love the taste of human, and we soon find ourselves fighting for our lives against a whole bunch of them. Thankfully, the fisherman had a stash of bombs on his ship, and we used them to get away and prevent ourselves from becoming fish food. Thankfully, this time we were actually safe, and we managed to reach the safety of Venice station, and we decide to take a little break to resupply before we carry on. The first stop we make is the local bar, and decide after the absolutely shit amount of luck we've had these past few days, we'll treat ourselves to a few drinks. This just so happened to be our final opportunity to do so as well, and we managed to unlock the Cheers achievement for drinking at every occasion. After one too many, we end up passing out and waking up a little while later. We then head back to the bar and discover that while completely pissed, we and a few others decided to absolutely trash the place, and of course the owner wasn't happy about this one bit. Luckily, I had quite a fair amount of bullets on me, and I was in a generous mood and decided to give him the money in order to get the place up and running again. We get a good morale point, he's happy, everyone's happy. While taking a stroll through Venice, we come across a young boy crying to his mother over a teddy bear that he had lost over near the shooting range, and so I decided to go over there to see if I could find it. Unfortunately, we didn't find any bear, but we do find out that the shooting range has a little competition going on and we can win some money. And so we decided to take part. The rules were simple: go in and kill as many rats as you can within the time limit for a reward, and there's 3 rounds of this that we can take part in. As I've said before, Artyom is an absolute crack shot with any weapon, and we managed to take out every single rat in all 3 rounds. Now, not only have we just won a boatload of bullets, but we also won a certain teddy bear that a certain young boy was looking for. Oh, and we've pretty much made sure that nearly everyone in the station gets a meal for the night, so we are also technically a hero. Anyway, the bear is of no use to us, so we take it back to the boy and get ourselves the reunion achievement. At this point, we decide to carry on in our pursuit for Pavel, which ends up taking us through a strip club, which of course we tip the girls, purely for intel gathering reasons, and we eventually stumble across the little rat himself. We overhear him talking to another soldier with instructions to tell Corbett that the virus had been transported to Oktyabrskia? Oktyabrskia, yeah, whatever that says. However, are almost spotted when one of the lovely ladies decide to offer us a dance. We decide to take one for the road and then quickly head out to catch up to Pavel. We eventually find him, and although he had us at first, thanks to a distraction we are able to get the upper hand. However, that didn't last long, as one of the locals come charging through the door, allowing Pavel to get away. At this point, we also decide to get out of Venice and head for an old abandoned church that the Rangers use for an outpost, in the hopes of finding some of our team. This of course means that we have to head to the surface, and we now spend a decent amount of time traversing a huge swamp, and of course there are plenty of ugly wugglies looking to eat us. While making our way across the swamp, we are of course having to utilise our gas mask quite a bit, and this led us to finally unlocking the air trophy for spending a total of 30 minutes worth of filters. Our travels through the swamps take us into the night, but we do eventually find the abandoned church as well as some of our fellow comrades. We wasn't safe just yet though, though, as a huge mutated creature that made his presence known numerous times at this point decides that now's the time it wants to eat us. Now, he was a beefy boy and he soaked up a hell of a lot of bullets, but you know what they say, if it bleeds, kill it, and that's exactly what we did. Eventually we take the monster down and head inside the church to regroup with our friends to let them know what's going on. One of these friends turns out to be Anna the rabbit lover, and she essentially apologizes in a roundabout way for being an absolute bitch. As we all get ready to leave for Oktyabrskyia, Lesnitsky the dirty weasel decided he was going to blow his way inside the church and decides to take Anna with him. We eventually manage to free ourselves from the ruins around us and are left with no option but to head below the church into its catacombs to find a way out. One of my absolute least favourite areas of the game. There's just an ungodly amount of Nazalis, Watchmen and other mutants down here, and it feels like every new room we proceed through has us defending ourselves against incoming waves of them. Don't get me wrong, I like a challenge, but it is a bit overkill with how many there are. Something else that's overkill? This big motherfucker. This is a rhino, and this big mama is a bigger bullet sponge than the mutant in the swamps. An easy trick to take her down though, for anyone wondering, is to spam a few explosives, get her to run into the stone supports, and then pump a few bullets into her. And doing just that nabbed us the big mama achievement for killing her. Turns out though that getting her to knock down all of those supports wasn't exactly the best idea, as we soon find ourselves getting swept away in an absolute ton of water before smacking the ground face first and passing out. We eventually wake up, and thankfully we were right outside where we needed to be, Oktyabrskyia. Making our way through, we confirm Anna is here, as we end up finding her getting moved somewhere, and we also discover that a virus has been let loose in the station. Funnily enough, a certain member of the Red Army mentioned something earlier about a virus being moved to this exact station. So it's safe to say this is likely more than just coincidence, and realistically a plan to make us and the rest of the Rangers look evil for releasing the virus, while the Reds are seen as the heroes, while simultaneously wiping out half an entire community to do it. Eventually we make our way through the burning section of the station and come face to face with Lesnitsky, who has Anna at gunpoint and orders us to take off our mask, otherwise she gets it. We of course obey and take off our mask, getting us both a good morale point and an achievement while simultaneously allowing Lesnitsky to get away. At this point me and Anna quickly make an escape, however due to all the smoke we inhaled we end up running out of air and passing out, but are thankfully saved by some of the locals. We eventually come around, finally get to smash Anna as a thank you for saving her, and then get given the all clear on being virus free. We make our way through the station and witness just how quickly the virus spreads, as well as how deadly it is, and realise that this is much worse than we thought, and that the Red Army are willing to sacrifice hundreds if not thousands of innocents just to get what they want. We, however, can't do anything more for these people and continue on our journey, where we are once again reunited with an old friend. This is Khan, and you'll know that whenever we are with Khan, weird stuff tends to happen, and it's absolutely no different in this game. He takes us to a location that he calls the River of Fate, a magical radioactive river that apparently can wash away our sins and take us where we want to go, and on our way there we experience a fair amount of mutants and a fair amount of visions. You know, nothing out of the ordinary when it comes to Khan. Eventually we make our way to the River of Fate and find ourselves showering in its radioactive glory. The river ends up showing us that the Dark One is being held captive on a train, and we are all of a sudden taken to that very same location and shortly find ourselves in pursuit of this train. And while making our way towards the train, I do manage to find and unlock my 10th safe in the game for the Master Thief achievement. Eventually we catch up with and jump on board the train, proceed to shoot our way further down the train, and eventually find the Dark One. We save him and he gives us another vision. In this vision we get a brief glimpse of Artyom as a young boy with his mother, before we eventually come to the point where the bombs had dropped, and he eventually comes face to face with a Dark One who had communicated with him, and it is since then that he has had this connection with the species. At this point the Dark One had very little energy left, and so we take him up to the surface to allow him to get some of that good irradiated oxygen. At this point we can clearly communicate with the Dark One, and it decides to stay with us to help us on our journey. Now these next few missions play heavily into the overall outcome of the ending of the game. There are multiple important choices we have to make in terms of proceeding through certain areas and whether or not to spare or kill certain people and mutants. What we basically need to do here is go through the next few levels with relatively no kills when it comes to the mutants roaming around outside, as the Dark One explains that they are simply hungry and just trying to survive themselves. Now in the past we would have just blasted them out of the way with no remorse, but this time we are aiming to show this young one that humanity as a whole has the capacity to change, and that we aren't all cold-blooded killers, and that sometimes it's worth giving people a second chance. Travelling through the area, we eventually come to a bridge that seems to be home to a very large number of mutants. Now at this point, in order to get another moral point and an achievement, we have to make our way from one end of the bridge all the way to the other while avoiding all of the mutants and not killing any of them that are looking to eat us, regardless of how passive we may be. This really isn't too bad at all. Maybe as a new player this could be a bit difficult, but I've played through the series so many times at this point and I pretty much know the pathing off by heart. Successfully doing this though does manage to get us the Rain Man achievement for completing a level without a single kill, and of course that good moral point that we are looking for. We eventually find Lesnitsky, and with the help of the Dark One we are able to read his mind. We discover that Lesnitsky is in fact responsible for stealing the virus from D6 and allowing the Reds to unleash it on the innocents. We also learn that they plan on storming D6 and that Pavel could be found nearby at the Red Square. At this point we unlock the secret achievement for discovering what the Reds are planning, and then make the choice to knock the guy out rather than kill him, although he most certainly deserved it. But again, we need that good morale point. After dealing with Lesnitsky, we then make our way towards the Red Square, which means cutting through the Dead City, and much like our previous ventures through the Dead City, there's plenty of visions to be seen, and witnessing every one of them manages to get us the Back to the Past achievement. We eventually make it to the Red Square, where we find ourselves getting ambushed by Pavel and his men, but much like every other enemy in this game, none of them even stand a chance against us, and we were soon left face to face with a very injured Pavel. The Dark One once again lends us his mind reading abilities, and we discover that the virus was actually a test to see just what it's capable of, and they essentially plan on spreading the virus through the metro, killing off their enemies and controlling everyone else in the process. D6 and the rest of the Rangers were now the only ones preventing the Red Army from doing that, and is the reason why they plan on launching a full-blown attack to take it over. We are then once again left with a choice of whether to save Pavel or leave him for dead, and once again we choose to save him for those morale points. After dealing with Pavel, we once again find ourselves travelling through a dark and dingy swamp-like area full of muties, only this one has a decent amount of traps lying around as well. Obviously we don't want to accidentally set any of them off, so we go through and disarm any that we come across, but doing so does unlock us the Ever Vigilant trophy for disarming 10 traps, although I'm sure this achievement popped early, as I'm pretty damn sure I hadn't disarmed 10 traps by this point. Continuing on through the forest, we eventually come across a very angry mutated Winnie the Pooh trying to protect its babies, and are left with no option but to fight it off, as well as dealing with incoming mutants. Not really too difficult, pretty much the same tactic that we used with the Rhino, minus the collapsing roof. Eventually the bear runs off, however moments later we find it getting attacked by watchmen, and I can't stand by and watch this animal suffer, and so help deal with its attackers. In return it doesn't eat us and we get the Forest Guardian achievement. Eventually we find ourselves meeting back up with Miller and Khan, and while a bit wary he allows the Dark One to show him the truth. At this point Miller learns of the Reds' plan, and it is also revealed that this Dark One isn't the only one left, and there are in fact a whole bunch of them sealed away deep within D6, which is also the reason why he is willing to stay and help us. And we then head to the Polis with Khan, the Dark One and Miller in order to expose the Reds' plans. Once there we enter the conference where we find Colonel Mosfin giving a speech, and we interrupt him to allow the Dark One to force him to spill the truth. We learn that essentially everything we had suspected up until this point is true. We learn that he killed his own brother thanks to Colonel Corbett's manipulation, and he confirms that Corbett and the Red Army are about to storm D6 as we speak. At this point we then unlock the Revelation achievement for revealing the truth, and we all get our asses over to D6 as quickly as possible. Once there it was obvious this was going to be a very bloody war. The Colonel gives us a motivational speech and hands us some big boy guns to defend the facility. Corbett and his men then use a train to breach the gates of D6, and it was time to hold the fort. At this point we begin to gun down the incoming forces and are soon rewarded with the soldier achievement for killing a total of 100 human enemies. Now it didn't matter how good a soldier we all are, and we unfortunately were completely outnumbered no matter how you look at it, and this led to us having to retreat further into D6, but it did give us access to our last diary entry of the game, unlocking us the published achievement. Our retreat was all part of Corbett's plan though, and he decides to use one final train to completely cripple our defense and gain access to D6. This knocks us out, and once again we come back around, but we are unfortunately surrounded by Corbett and the Red Army. We had lost, but we couldn't let D6 fall into the hands of the Red Army and go to reach for a switch to send the place to Kingdom Come. This is when thankfully all of our good deeds and acts of forgiveness come back to reward us as the young Dark One stops us from pulling the switch. You see, he had managed to free his family and had come to stop the Red Army and save us, and we witnessed the group of Dark Ones almost instantly take down all of the enemy forces. The Metro is saved, Miller survives, Khan disappears, and the Dark Ones decide to travel in search of a new home. This does however bring an end to the main story, and we unlock 2 achievements for both completing the game in Spartan mode and getting the good ending and saving D6. With the main story out of the way, we now had a little bit of cleanup to do. This would have us going back through the game once more, this time choosing the morally wrong choices and getting any other achievement that I may have missed the first time going through. Survival mode honestly isn't really difficult, and other than a couple of changes to HUD on your watch, everything is pretty much the same. The enemies aren't any more difficult in my opinion, and I still found plenty of ammo and bullets going through. Thankfully, we only missed 2 achievements the first time around, both being linked to killing people that we previously couldn't do due to stealth restrictions. The first achievement was the Derailed achievement for killing every enemy on the level Revolution, including all of the reinforcements. And the second was the Revenge achievement for this time killing Pavel instead of sparing his life. And of course we finished the game once again, only this time the Dark Ones don't make an appearance to help us against Corbett and the Red Army, and we are forced to destroy D6 as well as taking our lives along with it. This does however nab us our final 2 achievements for the main game, Survivor 2034 for completing the game on survival difficulty, and the Sail RV achievement for getting the bad ending and destroying D6. And that brings us once again to the end of the story, only this time we now have every achievement in the main game. Now, onto the DLC. For the most part, these DLC missions are quite short, usually being about 20 to 30 minutes long give or take, and has us playing as different people rather than Artyom. The first level we tackled was the Heavy Squad level, which has us playing as a German shock trooper for the Reich in a battle against the Red Army. We get access to some absolutely deadly weapons, but that doesn't make this mission any easier and is known for being one of the most challenging missions in the entire game. I died a couple of times myself, but we eventually managed to complete the mission and unlock the Hail Reich achievement. The next level was the Sniper Team level, which obviously has us playing as a sniper as we attempt to make our way through a Red Army controlled base without getting caught. Really enjoyable level, but a bit annoying as the enemies literally have eyes like a hawk and ears like an elephant. They hear and see pretty much everything. Nevertheless, after a bit of stress, we still managed to complete the level, unlocking the Saboteur achievement. Next up was the Tower level, and this essentially just has us fighting multiple waves of different enemies as part of a simulated training course. Killing everyone and clearing all of the levels inside the simulation manages to nab us the Test Complete achievement. Next was the Spider Lair level, which has us escaping a spider-infested silo. Not incredibly long, but easy to get overwhelmed with the amount of spiders inside, although you can just run past them, but where's the fun in that? Eventually though, we managed to escape the nest and unlock the Through the Fire achievement. Next was the level Pavel, where we find ourselves playing as the man himself and having to escape from a bandit controlled area of Venice. Quite short, quite easy, and we unlock the Heads Up achievement for completing it. Next up was the level Khan that has us playing as Ullman as we assist Khan in stopping a Hansa train. Yes, this takes place during the events of the main game and just after the River of Fate. Artyom is currently on the train trying to rescue the Dark One, and this is what causes this train to stop at the end of it. We stop the train and eventually reach an abandoned station named Polyanka, where we end up experiencing a vision that has us playing as a much younger Khan when the station was attacked by a horde of Nazalis. We end up escaping and sealing off the entrance, and when we come back around as Ullman, we both head to Polis to inform Miller of what's happening, completing the level and unlocking the No Way Out achievement. Next up was the Anna level that has us playing as Anna during one of the earlier missions of the main game, where our goal is to protect Artyom with our sniper while he tries to find the Dark One on the surface. Rather short mission, and we all know the outcome anyway. Completing the mission though nabs us the Sunset of Hope achievement. For our second to last achievement of the game, we needed to load up the level Kashatraya, I believe that's how you say it, and we just need to complete it. Now, for those of you who have played the first Metro game, you will recognise this location as the library that we have to come to as Artyom in order to find the D6 documents. Well, this time we are once again looking for some documents, and they are located in the exact same location as the D6 documents. This whole mission is more of a survival based mission, which I love, typically having to come back to restock on ammo and supplies, as well as turning in any interesting relics from the city above. This is definitely one of the longer DLC missions, and quite a challenging one if you're not careful. careful as the area is absolutely swarming with librarians and other mutants alike. We eventually find the documents as well as a few other goodies to turn into the boss, and we unlock the achievement for completing the level. This brings us to our final achievement we need in order to hit that 100%, and thankfully it was extremely easy. All we had to do was load up the developer level and explore the entire thing for 1 hour. Yeah, I said it was easy, not short. The place is quite interesting. You get to have a look at a lot of the people and mutants we come across during our time in the metro. There's a shooting range that we can test out all of the weapons on, and there's a little arena where we can spawn a bunch of NPCs and have them fight to the death. Oh, and there's also this really creepy janitor lady. Can't lie, she did scare me a couple of times. She just kind of pops up out of nowhere sometimes. It is kind of creepy. After about 10 minutes though, I had looked at and experienced most of what this level had to offer, and so I just left my controller on my desk while I watched some YouTube. At this point though, the journey was finally over, and after an hour, we unlock our final achievement, Developer. And that now means we have successfully 100%ed Metro Last Light and earned all 49 of its achievements. Now, I've played through this series a good few times, and each time I'm never disappointed. Of course, I've platinumed all 3 games on PlayStation, I've played through all of the games on Xbox, and I've played through the games on PC, and each time I'm never disappointed. It's not a perfect game by a long shot, but it's a fucking good one. Now, if you've played Metro 2033, you will have definitely noticed that Last Light is essentially the same game, just with a different story. Graphics, combat, and pretty much everything else remains the same, at least for the Redux versions of the games anyway. While I think they could have definitely done something more with this game considering it is a sequel, I'm still fully aware that this originally launched all the way back in 2013 for the 7th generation of consoles, being the 360 PS3 era, before getting a Redux update later on. Metro Exodus though is where they really smash it out of the park. Amazing graphics, more intense combat, and a completely new and fantastic story to experience that takes us pretty much everywhere but the Metro tunnels. That will come at a later point though. For now, this brings us to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the video and would like to see more content like this, then a like and share would be greatly appreciated and would help me out an absolute bunch. Be sure to let me know what you think of Metro Last Light down in the comments below, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on to stay up to date with everything I upload. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.